Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive, informal study of Hegel's Encyclopaedia Sciences. This is the logic. There's also nature and spirit or mind or German Geist. Those are all synonyms for, roughly anyway, for the third encyclopedia science entry. But this is the first one, logic. We're going in order. And we're going in order in this book as well, as you probably should, of Hegel. Um, we're on section 4. Last time we were talking about form and content of thought, and how getting into some abstract thinking might prove difficult for consciousness. So if you want to hear more about that, definitely check out the previous section. And if you're just not caught up, just I would generally advice for this. And if you do Kant and Marx study as well on this channel, just make sure you watch that in order. It's generally just is helpful with not only for the direct content but also the understanding of us and our commentary. You might refer to things we previously said. So general just advice there. Watch this in order. I would recommend. Um, those are my preliminary remarks. Does anyone have any else before we get to this very short section? Little paragraph here.
Yes. My preliminary remark is that this section is short.
It is, relatively speaking, it is quite short. Does anyone want to read this?
Sure.
Cool.
In its relation to our ordinary consciousness, philosophy would first have to show the need for its particular mode of cognition, or even to awaken this need. But in relation to the objects of religion, i.e., to truth altogether, it would have to prove that we have the ability to reach our cognition on our own. And in relation to any diversity that comes to light between religious notions and its own diverging determinations, it would have to justify the latter.
Cool. Um, uh, so, so,
YouTube Shorts edition.
yeah, yeah, YouTube Shorts Hegel study. It's like 3,000 shorts. Yeah, we infected the YouTube Shorts like brain rot audience with just yeah, Hegel Shorts. Yeah, this is short Hegel, but basically he's saying he is having kind of a similar. I would say I would draw another similarity to Kant here for the beginning of this paragraph, where he says philosophy would first have to show the need for its peculiar mode of cognition. I feel like Kant's doing something similar, particularly in the transcendental deduction of logic, where or of the category of the pure categories of the understanding, where he's like, okay, we need to show why
um,
this needs to be the case. We need to like it's necessary. It's not
I
just like
think I disagree. I think what
okay.
Kant is doing is showing the need for a particular thing within philosophical cognition.
I mean, yeah. I'm not like drawing it one to one. It was more just like
Yeah, well, it seems. I mean, I think they're different in kind, actually.
okay.
What Kant is doing is showing, hey, fellow technicians, we need to do this technical thing in order for technical goal to be accomplished. What Hegel is doing is saying, hey, random person on the street, here's why you need to do philosophy. To me, those are like pretty radically different.
Maybe in presentation. Uh, maybe in kind. I don't really. I don't know. I mean, I guess just for me, I view philosophy so necessary anyway. So for something like what Kant is doing,
Well,
I
but it's
really
worth reflecting on how you got to that point.
yeah, I guess it is more in this general sense rather than was like I didn't start philosophy saying, "Oh, I need to deduce the categories of the pure understanding."
Yeah, like you didn't wake up as a 6-year-old and be like, "Hmm, I wonder how a priori synthetic cognition is possible."
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
um,
Point taken.
um,
Um,
and so Hegel is, I mean, this is something that's already accomplished for us, right?
mhm.
And it probably is even for you. If you're at the point where you're reading Hegel, you have probably this interest in philosophy, right?
Mhm.
Um, you probably are aware in some way of the need for the particular mode of cognition, or maybe you're not. Maybe it's an unconscious impulse, right? But you don't know what the actual function of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alternatively, right, if you're religious and you're dealing with philosophy insofar as it deals with the objects of religious cognition, um, the question is, faith versus reason, right? Uh, how can philosophy, if it diverges from the ideas we already have about faith, justify itself? Which, to me, that's sort of alien. That's a very alien mindset. It's like, of course, but I'm interested to see how Hegel could do such a thing, or wants to do such a thing.
Yeah. We kind of tackled the end of that as well. They were talking about, it says here, it would prove that we have the ability to reach our cognitions on our own, and in relation to any diversity that comes to light between religious notions and its own diverging determinations, it would have to justify the latter. So it has to justify um, the
Well,
determinations that diverge from religious notions,
right.
which I find interesting. And you're saying it's you just kind of want to see how he does that.
Sure. Because to me, it seems like, well, it's almost cyclical. Any justification that you would have would be based on reason, and of course, you already have to accept like a reason to, like, that's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what's in question.
yeah. I don't really know what the diverging determinations would, unless he's talking about like the common sense. No, he's
Like
not.
it seems to be that he wants or says he can claim, convince, justify, argue to people who have already not accepted reason as the arbiter of truth, which is interesting.
Well, because for Hegel, that the like the absolute isn't really divergent. It's all the same thing. So on some level or another, theoretically, you could reach any person who disagrees with it for some reason because they aren't truly divergent. I guess.
I suppose. But I'm also accustomed to Hegel saying we can't talk with certain people,
Where does it say
which
that?
most philosophers I don't remember.
Okay, because I don't really remember him saying anything like that.
I don't remember where. I just have the sense that it happened at some point.
Okay, well, regardless, it seems to be saying here that you're able to
Yeah, it
justify it regardless.
yeah, it seems that
You would have
Hegel
to.
is saying, yeah, Hegel does seem to be saying um that you can make a meaningful justification of reason to people who don't already believe in it
And I think that's just because that
because they do implicitly.
yeah, like under their like veil of their disbelief, that by virtue of them being in the world and being a human being and just being engaged in like the absolute, they're like necessarily like
I
showing
think
it.
so, but we still have to see how Hegel actually does this.
Yeah, so we'll see that hopefully in I may just skim this first, see if he does that directly or not in order. Agreement about the. Well, this was pretty short, honestly. Do you guys just want to go into section 5 and just see?
Yeah,
Okay, this
sure.
because this is only we haven't even been it for 10 minutes, so I think we can do sections 4 and 5 this time. Get a little frisky, do a little double section study session.
Yep, sure.
Does anyone want to read section 5?
Uh, okay.
All right, Harrison.
In order to reach a provisional agreement about the distinction that has been mentioned and the insight connected with it, namely, that the genuine content of our consciousness is preserved when it is translated into the form of thought and the concept, and even that it is not placed in its proper light until then, we can conveniently call to mind another old prejudice. This prejudgment holds that when we want to experience what is true in objects and occurrences, as well as feelings, intuitions, opinions, notions, etc., that we must think them over, and the very least that this thinking over does in any case is to change our feelings and notions, etc., into thoughts.
Again, this is fascinatingly like popular.
Yeah. I was gonna
It's
say, I
like
don't even think I really have anything to say about this. Like, okay.
it was like, hey, ordinary guy who hates philosophy. You'd think that thinking things over is pretty good, right? That seems to be what he's saying.
Yeah.
Uh, that's so
Are you into
far from the
changing
idea.
your feelings and notions into thoughts? Are you into that? Do you fuck with that?
Yeah, I don't know. Um, Not what I expected to read from Hegel today.
No. Does anyone want to start this indent? I can read this indent, I guess. But since philosophy claims that it is thinking that is the proper form of its business, and since every human is by nature able to think, what happens as a result of this abstraction, which leaves out the distinction that was indicated in section 3, is just the opposite of what we have mentioned already as the complaint about the unintelligibility of philosophy. Philosophic science is often treated with contempt by those who imagine and say, although they have not made any effort to come to grips with it, that they already understand what philosophy is all about quite spontaneously, and that they are able to do philosophy and to judge it just by holding on to what they have learned at an ordinary level, or at a very ordinary level, in particular from their religious feelings. In the case of all the other sciences, we admit that one has to have studied them in order to know about them, and that one is only entitled to judge them in virtue of a studied acquaintance. We have and we admit that in order to make a shoe, one an interesting example. I don't know why I
Okay,
find that so
we're just
silly, but
getting as Plato as possible. Okay,
yeah.
it's like okay.
Take a shoe for instance. Yeah, we 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 admit that in order to make a shoe, one has to have learned and practiced how to do it. Even though every one of us has the required measure in his own feet, and we all have hands with a natural aptitude for the trade in question. It is only for doing philosophy that study, learning, and effort of this kind is supposedly not needed. Of late, this convenient opinion has received its confirmation through the doctrine of immediate knowing, that is, of knowing through intuition. So, yeah, Wittgenstein, someone should have showed him this before he started his philosophy career.
What? Why?
Because
Oh,
Wittgenstein infamously philosophized and was like, "I am not going to read the history of philosophy. I'm just going to do it because it's easy and it's everyone's actually confused, and I'm going to show it, even though I'm not going to like actually look into what they're talking about." He eventually changed later and became a lot more based and actually read, and then was like, "Oh, okay, now I have to change my philosophy in light of what other people have said." But he did not start out that way. So
yes. Today I will be smarter than like 50 of the smartest people ever talking to each other and expanding on their own
yeah,
like
no, it was
conversation
quite
indefinitely.
ridiculous. It was quite ridiculous. And so a lot of the
Um,
things he said were quite ridiculous. But
I mean, to be fair, that's what a lot of the kids will do.
yeah, it's not just Wittgenstein either. That's I just kind of picked that out of my hat because it came into my head. But the point actually Hegel is trying to say, right, is more like what Patrick is saying. People kind of have, which is funny how much of this is carried over quite literally into today. Like I feel like I'm in like a Substack or something, or like a or like Twitter, and I'm just like hearing people complain about like philosophers complain that like the first year undergrads think they know everything. Um, or even if you talk, I like tell people I study philosophy, and sometimes I'm met with like these kinds of like judgments, like, oh, like what do you like, you know, you're just talking about what you intuit, like that's so lame. Like actually do something rigorous or do something, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly well. that's a different perception in my mind, a slightly different one. Like the American perception, it's not. I mean, certainly it's sort of derived from the same root. This idea that anyone can do philosophy, it's basically just the same as natural consciousness.
Yeah.
But nowadays, we don't even have this idea that philosophy is rational in the popular consciousness, right?
Really?
They at least had the idea that, yeah, it's basically just common sense that they're doing. But nowadays, I think the average person doesn't even realize that philosophy involves arguments.
Oh. That sucks.
I mean, is that not your experience? In my
I mean,
experience,
not
I think.
really. At least not like
My
I haven't
experience.
directly experienced anything like that, like to that extreme. It's more so just like what he's talking about here. I've come into contact with. Do you want to
I
share your
experienced
experience of like some horrible misunderstanding? Or sorry, Harrison, are you saying something?
Oh yeah, I was like that's my experience of how I think I used to experience philosophy.
Oh, like what Patrick is saying?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That is just
Still,
like people having opinions.
well, I still engaged with it nonetheless and liked it, but I was like I definitely was just like I was a lot of just like watching other people talk about it and not give any like rigorous explanations and just being like, oh okay, that sounds cool.
Oh, like
That
stoner
is not.
philosophy?
Yeah, like stoner philosophy,
Oh,
basically.
yeah. Okay.
That's
I know
the
what you're
perfect
talking about.
explanation of it. Is I mean, I think that's pretty much how the average person sees philosophy is stoner thoughts.
Yeah. Bro, what if
Oh
like
yeah,
there
no,
are
absolutely.
aliens in the sky?
Bro, how can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real? That's what my degree is in.
Yeah, I have a degree in mirror thoughts.
Well, I mean, if you look at it a certain way,
Yeah, I
Hegel
was
is
gonna
all about
say,
mirror
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, 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 like looking at yourself and then, yo, have y'all heard of the transcendental eye? uh, yeah. Okay, well, that was sections 4 and 5, just talking a lot about natural consciousness and perceptions of philosophy. Uh, cool. Alrighty. That yeah, not a whole lot to go into. Definitely a lot less than the previous sections, but that's all right. Um, looks like it's gonna try to fix that idea of philosophy in section 6, so we'll do that next time. Are there any other ending comments?
Philosophy, you have to read to do it.
Yeah, read and learn. It's like making a shoe. So
It's
everyone,
almost like it's an academic discipline.
wow, wow. I can get a master's degree in this. I can't believe I'm going to be doing that in the fall. Wow, that's so crazy. It's like making a shoe. It's like making a shoe.
This is just like making a shoe.
Shoemakers unite. Gang making shoes on Instagram, right?
Guys, I'm literally making a shoe right now. Except by literally, I mean metaphorically. The shoe is
just
philosophy.
conflating. That's another
You know what
popular
they
thing
say?
to do today, is just to conflate like literally and metaphorically. We like to
Yeah.
do that now.
Uh,
Just like we like to stoner thought philosophy now.
you
Okay,
know what
well,
they
don't do
say? If
that.
the
That's my
shoe fits.
Hegelian. That's my Hegelian advice. If the shoe fits, that's crazy. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, everyone fit your shoes and learn how to make them and learn how to do philosophy. Read other philosophy. Look at our Kant study. Look at our Marx study. Go to the previous sections of this study. Read. Oh, there's a list I'll show on screen of good things to read that Patrick made. Read this shit right here. Not that it's
Yeah.
shit. It's actually quite good.
Yeah,
This is
this
not
was
shit,
my attempt to
actually.
give Harrison a somewhat abbreviated but still solid background in the philosophy up to Kant.
Yeah, that's. I was actually quite impressed. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's disagreements and different lists, but the gist is there with this list. So read this as well if you can, as much of it as you can, I would say. Yeah, alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us for Hegel study, and we'll see you in section 6, where hopefully philosophy will be redeemed from this natural consciousness, ordinary consciousness notion.
Cringe consciousness.
Cringe, yeah, cringe consciousness. I like that. Cringe, yeah. Don't be cringe consciousness. Be base consciousness. Read and learn and do philosophy. All right. Have a good night.